All right, so we're diving deep into Transcendentalism today.
Ah, yes.
You might be here because you're prepping for a class.
Could be.
Or maybe you're just curious about this whole back to nature, trust your gut kind of philosophy.
It's really resonating these days.
Yeah, and we're going to go beyond the surface level today.
Definitely.
Expect some aha moments. We're going to be talking about finding spirituality in everyday life.
Yeah.
Prioritizing intuition over all those strict rules, and really questioning pretty much everything.
I mean, the thing is, these ideas are from like the early 1800s,
Wow.
but they're still so relevant today. It's kind of wild.
That's so true.
It's like these transcendentalists were ahead of their time.
Yeah.
You know, they were dealing with all these crazy societal changes brought on by the Industrial Revolution.
Oh, yeah, factories and urbanization.
Exactly. All this emphasis on like material possessions and stuff.
Yeah, it was like, hold on a sec, is this all there is? Just like more stuff?
Right. They weren't buying it.
Nope.
So instead of getting swept up in all that, they were like,
Okay.
let's get back to the basics.
Back to nature.
Back to what really matters.
Totally.
And, you know, like a key figure in all this was Ralph Waldo Emerson.
Okay, Emerson's the guy.
Yeah, he was like the spokesperson for Transcendentalism,
Interesting.
writing all these essays and giving lectures that like captured the essence of this whole movement.
Okay, so Emerson's our guy, but like, what were these transcendentalists actually all about?
Right.
What were they trying to say?
There's this whole God in everything thing, especially in nature, right?
Right.
So they believe that like the divine, you know,
Mm-hmm.
that spiritual force of the universe,
Yeah.
it wasn't just some distant abstract concept. It was present in everything,
Oh, wow.
and especially in the natural world.
So not just sitting in a church pew,
Right,
but
yeah.
actually like experiencing the divine out in the world.
Yeah, exactly. And Emerson was a huge advocate for that.
Interesting.
In his essay, Nature, he describes going for a walk in the woods
Mm.
and just feeling this incredible sense of connection, like he was shedding all these societal layers and getting to the core of his being.
Oh, wow.
He even describes nature as like a mirror to the soul.
That's deep.
Right.
I've totally felt that way before, like on a hike. Like the
Yes.
trees are speaking to you or something.
That's it. It's about recognizing that there's more to the world than meets the eye.
Right.
That sunset, that mountain vista, that quiet forest, they're not just pretty scenery.
Yeah.
They're reflecting something deep within you.
Okay, I am getting chills. This is some deep stuff.
It is.
So, like, how do we tap into that deeper meaning, that connection to something bigger?
That's a great question.
Is that where intuition comes in?
Yeah, the Transcendentalists, they put a huge emphasis on intuition as like the key to unlocking those deeper truths.
Okay.
So it's about trusting that inner voice, you know,
Yeah.
that gut feeling,
Yeah.
even when it goes against like logic or reason.
Mm-hmm. But wasn't Emerson all about logic and reason? I always thought he was like a super intellectual dude.
He was,
Yeah.
but he also recognized the limitations of just pure intellect.
Okay.
So he believed that there's a whole realm of knowledge that's beyond what our rational minds can grasp.
Right.
And that's where intuition comes in.
Interesting.
It's about kind of transcending the ordinary, you know, the everyday to tap into something larger than ourselves.
Okay, I'm starting to see the connection here.
Yeah.
It's not about rejecting logic completely,
No.
but it's recognizing that there's something more, something deeper that we can access through intuition.
Exactly.
Okay.
And this idea of like a deeper connection
Yeah.
of a universal spirit that like binds us all,
Right?
that was like central to transcendentalist thought.
Okay.
They called it the oversoul.
The overkill.
It's like this spiritual essence that transcends individual identity,
Okay.
and it connects us to each other and to the natural world.
So it's like we're all part of this like giant cosmic web, all connected through this oversoul. Kind of like the Force in Star Wars.
Uh-huh. I like that analogy.
Yeah.
There's definitely that sense of interconnectedness in transcendentalism.
Right.
Emerson even wrote a whole essay dedicated to the concept of the oversoul,
Oh, wow.
exploring how this universal spirit transcends our individual limitations and connects us to something much greater.
Okay. I'm definitely starting to get this whole oversoul thing.
Good.
But here's what I'm wondering.
Yeah.
If the transcendentalists were so focused on this like inner spiritual experience,
Mhm.
did they even care about organized religion?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it kind of gets to the heart of transcendentalism's rebellious spirit.
Okay.
They weren't exactly fans of organized religion.
Really?
Yeah, in fact, they saw it as a hindrance to true spiritual development.
So it's not that they didn't believe in God.
Right.
They just didn't like the way that traditional religions were doing things.
Exactly.
Interesting.
They felt that organized religion with all its rigid doctrines and like hierarchies, it was too focused on dogma and outward rituals,
Okay.
and not enough on that direct personal connection with the divine.
So instead of going to church and listening to a sermon,
Yeah.
they were more about going for a walk in the woods.
Right.
And just feeling that spiritual connection firsthand.
Exactly. It's about finding the divine within yourself and in the world around you,
Right.
not just in a building or through some specific set of beliefs.
Okay. That makes sense. But it sounds like they weren't just questioning religion.
Yeah.
They were kind of questioning everything, weren't they?
Right.
I mean, societal norms, traditions, the whole pursuit of material wealth.
Yeah.
It seems like they weren't afraid to go against the grain.
Yeah, you're right. They were questioning a lot of the established ways of thinking and being.
Interesting.
And it's important to remember that they were living in a time of like radical change.
Yes.
You know,
Right,
with the
yeah.
Industrial Revolution transforming society at a breakneck pace.
It was a crazy time.
Yeah, and they saw the dark side of all this progress.
Yeah. The exploitation, the inequality, the growing obsession with material possession.
So they weren't just like some hippy-dippy back to nature folks. They were deeply engaged with like the social and political issues of their time.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And this questioning spirit,
Yeah.
this willingness to challenge the status quo,
Mm-hmm.
it led them to advocate for a whole range of social reforms,
Oh, wow.
from abolitionism to women's rights.
Okay, so they were rebels with a cause.
Yeah.
But before we get to their activism,
Yeah.
I'm curious about how they saw the individual.
Okay.
I mean, if they were
Yeah.
questioning everything external, what did they believe about the self?
So this is where Emerson's ideas about self-reliance come into play.
Good.
He believed in the inherent goodness and potential of every individual
Mm-hmm.
and emphasized the importance of trusting your own intuition and following your own path,
So-
even when it diverges from like societal expectations.
So kind of like a be yourself, even if it's weird kind of thing.
Ha ha ha. Yeah, in a way, yes.
But it's more than just being different for the sake of being different.
Right.
It's about recognizing that inner spark,
Mm-hmm.
that unique potential within each of us,
Yeah.
and having the courage to cultivate it, even if it means going against the grain.
That sounds incredibly empowering.
It is.
But also kind of scary. Like, what if my inner voice is telling me to do something totally crazy?
Well, that's where discernment comes in.
Yeah, okay.
It's not about blindly following every whim or impulse,
Right.
but about learning to listen to that deeper wisdom within you
Mm-hmm.
and aligning your actions with your values.
Okay.
And sometimes that takes courage.
So it's about finding that balance between intuition and reason,
Yes.
between individual expression and social responsibility.
Exactly.
That sounds like a lot to juggle.
It is.
Oh.
And it's a journey, not a destination.
Right.
But I think that's part of what makes Transcendentalism so compelling, even today.
Yeah.
It offers us a way to navigate the complexities of modern life with a sense of purpose, meaning, and connection.
This is blowing my mind.
Good.
But before we get lost in the philosophical weeds here,
Okay.
let's bring it back to you, the listener.
Right.
What does all this talk about nature, intuition, and self-reliance actually mean for your everyday life?
That's the million-dollar question.
It is.
And it's one that we'll explore in more depth as we go on.
Okay.
But to give you a starting point,
Yeah.
think about how you can incorporate these transcendentalist principles into your daily routine.
Okay.
Could you spend like a few minutes each day just connecting with nature?
Okay.
Even if it's just stepping outside and taking a few deep breaths.
Yeah, like a little nature break for the soul.
Exactly.
I like that.
What else? Start paying attention to your intuition.
Oh, okay.
You know, that little voice that whispers, maybe not this, or go for it.
Yeah.
Don't dismiss it so quickly. See what happens when you actually listen to it.
It's like those times when you have a gut feeling about something and you ignore it. And then later you're like, ugh, I should have listened to my gut.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The Transcendentalists were onto something with this whole intuition thing.
Yeah.
They understood that there's a deeper wisdom within us
Yeah.
that we can tap into if we just learn to pay attention.
Okay. This is getting good.
It is.
But before we get too carried away,
Yeah.
we're going to take a quick break.
Okay.
When we come back, we'll dive even deeper into the practical applications of Transcendentalism
Sounds good.
and explore how these ideas can help you live a more authentic, meaningful, and connected life.
I love it.
All right, we'll be right back. Okay, so we're back
We are.
and ready to dive deeper into how you can actually put these transcendentalist ideas into practice?
Yeah.
I mean, it can't be all about staring at sunsets and whispering to trees, right?
Well, those could be great starting points.
Okay, good.
But you're right, Transcendentalism wasn't just about like passive contemplation.
Right.
It was about action,
Yeah.
about aligning your life with these core principles.
So how do we do that?
Yeah.
Like, give us the Transcendentalism to-do list.
Okay.
What's step one?
Step one is cultivate that connection with nature.
Oh, like
We touched on this earlier,
yeah.
but it's so important.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not just talking about like epic wilderness adventures.
Okay.
Even if you're in a city, you can find pockets of nature.
Right.
A park, a rooftop garden, a single tree on a street corner.
Right.
It's about noticing and appreciating those little moments of connection.
So like a mini meditation with a tree.
Exactly.
I can totally see myself doing that.
Yeah.
What's next on the list?
Next, pay attention to your intuition.
Okay.
We talked about how the Transcendentalists really valued that inner voice.
Right, that gut feeling.
Yeah, instead of overthinking every little decision, try tuning in to that inner wisdom.
Okay.
See where it leads you.
It's like that saying, go with your gut.
Yeah,
The Transcendentalists were on to something.
they were.
But what about this whole authenticity thing? How do we live more authentically? That seems like a big one.
It is a big one, and it can be challenging.
Yeah.
It's about peeling back all those layers of expectations.
Right.
Societal, familial, even the ones we put on ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
And getting to the core of who you are.
Right.
It's about aligning your actions with your values, even when it's tough or unconventional.
So less people-pleasing and more, this is me, take it or leave it.
Exactly. It's about owning your truth, your unique perspective, your quirks, even your flaws.
Wow.
It takes courage to be truly authentic, but the rewards are immense.
I'm sensing a theme here.
Yeah.
Nature, intuition, authenticity,
Yeah.
they all seem to require a certain level of mindfulness,
Yeah.
of slowing down and paying attention.
Exactly.
Were the Transcendentalists into mindfulness before it was cool?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They were way ahead of the curve on that one.
Wow.
They understood that living a meaningful life requires being present, aware, and connected to something larger than yourself.
Okay, so they were all about personal growth and self-discovery, but they weren't just sitting around meditating in the woods, right?
Right.
They were also about social change.
Yes.
How did their ideals translate into action?
So this is where the movement gets really interesting,
Okay.
where their philosophy meets the real world. A lot of transcendentalists were deeply involved in social reform movements.
Interesting.
They saw the injustices of their time,
Right.
slavery, the lack of women's rights, the inequalities in education,
Yeah.
and they felt compelled to act.
So their spirituality wasn't just some personal inward-focused thing.
Right.
It fueled their fight for a better world.
Exactly. They understood that true spirituality meant extending that compassion and that drive for justice outward into the world around them.
Yay.
They saw the interconnectedness of all things, not just in nature, but in society as well.
So they were fighting for abolition, women's rights, better education. That's a pretty impressive track record for a bunch of nature-loving philosophers.
It is. And their influence didn't stop there.
Real.
You can see their fingerprints on so many movements that followed.
Like what?
Environmentalism, the fight for individual rights, even the whole self-help movement owes a debt to transcendentalism.
Wow. Their legacy is huge.
It is.
It's kind of mind-blowing to think about how these ideas from the 1800s are still so relevant today.
I know. It's pretty amazing.
They were really onto something, weren't they?
They were, and I think that's because their message is timeless.
Yeah.
It's about connecting with our deepest selves with each other
Yeah.
and with the natural world.
Right.
It's about living with intention, authenticity, and a sense of purpose.
That's beautifully said.
Thank you.
It's like they offer us a roadmap for navigating the complexities of modern life, a way to find meaning and connection in a world that can often feel chaotic and overwhelming.
Exactly, and that's why I think it's so important to revisit these ideas,
Yeah.
to dust them off and see how they can speak to us today.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here,
We have.
from deep philosophical concepts to practical tips for living a more transcendentalist life.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, what's one thing that really stood out to you about transcendentalism? Something that like surprised you or challenged your own thinking?
That's a great question. I think what struck me most is how radical their ideas actually were.
Yeah.
They were questioning everything, religious dogma, societal norms, even the definition of success itself.
Right.
And they did it in a way that was both intellectual and deeply spiritual.
It's like they were shaking everyone awake and saying, hey, there's a whole other way to experience life.
Exactly. And they weren't afraid to go against the grain to be nonconformists,
Yeah.
even when it was unpopular or even dangerous.
That's pretty inspiring.
It is.
It's like a reminder that we all have that power within us
Mm-hmm.
to challenge the status quo, to live authentically, and to make a difference in the world.
I love that.
But there's still more to uncover, right? Oh, yeah.
More layers to this transcendentalist onion.
Absolutely. There's always more to discover. And that's what makes these deep dives so rewarding.
I agree.
We'll be back in a moment to wrap things up and leave you with some final food for thought.
Okay. And we are back for our final thoughts on transcendentalism.
I feel like we've been on this amazing journey, you know?
We have. From those breathtaking sunsets
Oh,
to
yeah.
the whispers in the woods
It's all connected.
to this radical self-reliance and fighting for social change. It's been a lot.
It really has.
But before we wrap up, I'm going to bring it back to you, the listener.
Yeah.
We've talked about all these really big ideas,
Mhm.
but how can you actually apply them to your life today?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah, what's one concrete thing that you can do to
Mhm.
tap into that transcendentalist spirit?
Well, here's something to think about. In this world of like constant connection,
Oh, yeah.
Digital overload and everything,
Totally.
what would happen if you just unplugged for a little bit? Ooh, I like that. A little digital detox.
Yeah.
A chance to step away from the screens
Mm.
and reconnect with those core transcendentalist values,
Mm.
nature, intuition, self-reflection.
Exactly. It's about quieting the noise, both external and internal,
Yeah.
and tuning into that deeper connection.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a walk in the park,
Mm-hmm.
a mindful meditation, or even just sitting in silence and observing your thoughts and feelings.
Oh, wow.
What happens when you give yourself that space to just be?
It's like hitting the reset button on your soul.
Yeah,
In today's world, that sounds pretty good.
absolutely. Transcendentalism reminds us that true fulfillment comes from within,
Right.
from cultivating that connection to our authentic selves and to the world around us.
Yeah.
And sometimes that means disconnecting from the things that distract us from those essential truths.
So it's not about rejecting technology or society completely.
Right.
It's about finding that balance, that harmony between our inner and outer worlds. It's like they were saying, hey, put down the phone, go for a walk, and just listen to what your soul is telling you.
And you know what? That advice is more relevant today than ever.
So true.
Yeah.
Okay, so to sum it all up,
Mm-hmm.
Transcendentalism is more than just some historical movement or a dusty old philosophy.
Yeah,
It's a way of life.
it is.
It's a set of principles that can really guide us toward a more meaningful,
Right.
authentic, and connected existence.
Beautifully said.
Thank you.
And it's a journey that's open to everyone, right?
Absolutely.
It's about tapping into that inherent goodness and potential that we all have inside of us and using it to create a more just and beautiful world.
I love that.
So as you go about your day today,
Yeah.
remember those core transcendentalist principles. Embrace nature, trust your intuition,
Yeah.
seek authenticity, and don't be afraid to challenge the status quo.
Be a rebel.
You might be surprised by the extraordinary experiences that unfold when you do.
You really might. And who knows, maybe you'll even inspire others to embark on their own transcendentalist journeys.
That's a beautiful thought. Well, that's it for today.
Yeah.
Our deep dive into transcendentalism is complete.
It's been fun.
But the journey doesn't have to end here.
Right.
We encourage you to explore these ideas further. Maybe read some Emerson essays.
Yeah.
Get out into nature and see what insights you discover for yourself.
Get out there.
And most importantly, put these ideas into practice.
Yes.
See how they can transform your life and the world around you.
I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
All right, until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning,
Keep learning.
and keep diving deep.